All right. Now we're at the credits. It's been, boy, this game, I think is probably the longest gap in gameplay, based on the streams. 4 years between episode 2 and episode 3. So, oops. But what did I think of the game? Well, apart from the fact that I don't remember a lot of what happened 4 years ago, it doesn't really matter a whole lot because the main chunk of the story that I actually played was recently. I think it has probably one of the more interesting stories that I've seen in Starcraft. That ending, while, like, it's just been a long fucking stream. We're almost at 11 hours. That ending epilogue is very cool. Like, the... Thank you, Shorty. It is definitely a well-told story, especially when you're talking about all of the different races who normally all hate each other, but are putting aside their differences, at least for now. And you have the core cast of Kerrigan, Raynor, and not Zeratul, fucking Artanis, and how all of them basically are leading this entire military into war against this Xel'Naga of Amon, which, I mean, Xel'Naga you heard of previously, but I had never, like, really understood what they are. But looking at this now, it is just... It's so similar to Mass Effect. Especially talking about, like, the cycles of... I believe it was of Extinction. The Xel'Naga look very similar to the Reapers. In a way, I guess. You have all these factions that all hate each other sometimes or not, and trying to get them all to coexist, at least for the time being. Like, I don't know if it's just the fact that these stories are similar in general, or it's just a really good story in terms of gameplay. Like, I mean, it's... What I'm getting at is it's a good game. It's a good story. I'm bad at RTSs, but I still enjoy StarCraft a lot. Like, I played StarCraft 1. I had Brood War, which I thought was a really... I would always play Brood War because you'd always have the extra units. I liked this game so much that I bought... Or I liked StarCraft so much that I bought the Collector's Edition for this one. Which is why, if you look, and when we get to the home screen, if you look, my profile picture is of, I think it's called the Diablo Marine, and the only way that you get that is by buying the Collector's Edition. And with that, it came with a USB drive, which is downstairs. It's actually hanging on my Q hook, of Jim Raynor's dog tag. And, like, that's really cool. And it was so cool that when I was working for a game store, and we would always have to load up, like, PlayStation with trailers, I would use that dog tag, and I would wear it, because of course, but I would use that as my USB drive to transfer video files over. Really cool art book. I think the thing that I got the most use out of, though, would be the CD. It came with all the music, and the music that came out of StarCraft 2, really, really good. Now, I'm not trying to not do a whole review of all of the Starcrafts, or all of Starcraft 2, including the original game and Heart of the Swarm. Jeez. Because I've already done, on my review channel, I've already done a review of Heart of the Swarm. So there's no need to go into that. I've always liked the Protoss. I think they're one of the cooler. Zerg was never the race that I would go for. It would usually be Protoss, while everything would be a little bit longer to build, and they were weaker, but they also had a shield, whereas the other ones didn't. The probes, to me, are the best builders, because all you need is one, as opposed to when you are playing as the Zerg, you lose the drone when you build, because the drone becomes the building. And with SCVs, they are actually sitting there and actually having to build it. So while it's being built, you lose the ability to use it, but it's not like a drone where you lose the unit altogether. But with a probe, you just click build, it goes up, it goes boop, warps whatever in, but once as it's warping in, you can go and build a bunch of other things. The things that they added in 2 with the, I forget what it's called, but the ability to speed up building. I know I didn't use a whole lot, or take advantage of that a lot, but I usually would only have the one nexus. The warps, to warp in units as opposed to building them, really handy. Really, really handy. The abilities that you had, like to warp in a pylon immediately with reinforcements, the time stop, which was nice in not this last mission, but I think the mission before, or the end of the game. I forget exactly what it is. The giant purification beam, like all of those I could have seen using. There were just some of them that don't fit my playstyle. Like with the other two, having the ability to it's not like, for example, with the Dragoons, I could choose between a Dragoon or the Stalker, and while the Stalkers work out fine, like, I tend to favor the Dragoons, so the fact that I could choose that in the campaign was really cool. I think that's something I mentioned over or when I did the Heart of the Swarm review as well. But I don't know. I've always been fascinated by Kerrigan's story. So while I don't like Zerg necessarily, I think Kerrigan is the most interesting character. Because that's been a character that's gone just insane ups and downs between StarCraft 1 into Brood War, because Brood War she's the enemy, and then into StarCraft 2, where she's still the enemy, and then you go into, but at the end is, spoilers, but it's a game that's fucking however old, she becomes good, like the evil, it gets purged out of her. And then you have Heart of the Swarm, and then you get into, back into this, and she's still like her own person. She has the connection to the Zerg still, and the Zerg still respect her and will follow her, but isn't like a mindless drone, for lack of a better way to put it. I do find Artanis an interesting character, but a little bit more along like, I guess is a little more two-dimensional, because it's all about pride and following Zeratul and yeah. But I don't know. I was happy to see Travis Willingham voicing a character. I was also happy that I was able to identify Travis Willingham as said character. Some of the new units that they added in here were cool. Trying to think on some of them. I think the ones that I liked the most were just the small variations of units that I would... So, like with the Zealots, having the... what I was playing with at the end, where if they died, they would be able to come back, and then that ability would have a cooldown timer, so if they were died again in like 20 seconds, they would be dead. The Void Rays. The Void Rays. Oh, they're so cool. And the variations that they had on that were awesome. Trying to remember, because the carrier itself was an option. I think, was it the choice between like carrier, mothership, and something else? Now, when I played before, the mothership was... It's a cool idea, but the fact that you can only have one spawned in kind of makes it a little bit more difficult, because it's not all that strong. And it's, I think, if I recall correctly, it plays more like a support as opposed to like a carrier being an attack. But yeah, it was nice to have, like, I pretty much had the same team makeup most of the time when I was doing the going into battles, because it was a bunch of Void Rays. You probably, like, I think the way that I would do it normally would be like 6 Void Rays, 6-ish cruisers, or carriers. And then I would just kind of like fill up a bunch of the Dragoons and the Zealots, because the Dragoons usually would do pretty good damage to heavier armored enemies, and they could also attack air, whereas the Zealots can't. So doing the Zealots and the Dragoons tend to offset each other pretty well in terms of team makeup. I just love the Void Rays, and when you can get a handful of them all focusing on a target, that's when they get to be great, because they all then start to build up their attack, and you can see it'll start off at a pretty narrow beam. It still does good damage, but it starts off at the narrow beam, then it gets fatter and starts doing more damage, and then it gets fatter again and does even more damage. And then when you can get 6 of those attacking on a building, like, that's when you start to see the health bar just melt, and it's so cool. And then, yeah, carriers are carriers. I liked the nice to have that the character or carriers have in Starcraft 2, where they will just automatically build new interceptors, I think that's what they're called, when the interceptors die. So you don't have to constantly be paying attention like you had to in StarCraft 1. And that was just something to not have to keep an eye on. The cool things, if you had a bunch of characters selected, and a bunch of them had different abilities, being able to tab through them and start shooting off their abilities was good. Because there was nothing... I would never use a lot of abilities because I would have a rather large team makeup, and it would just kind of pick one. In StarCraft 1, who knows, maybe there actually was an ability to swap between them, the main selected one, and I just didn't know about it. But no, this was definitely a very fun game to get back into. Very good story. Yeah, I can't really complain about it at all. Apart from, again, and this is all just because I made the decision to try and push to the end and not actually finish the stream when I finish the game. And it's almost been 11 hours. Now granted, probably an hour to 2 hours of those was me on the BRB screen. Whether it be food, just getting up, stretching, blah, blah, blah. There's several reasons that it could have been. But yeah, I was like, cool, the end is here. Like, we've finished the game. Shit, there's an epilogue. So, but in truth, the epilogue, I think it said recommended to play. I agree. It was definitely a good thing that I did play it, because it did resolve or did finish it. Like, the game is now over. The credits obviously are rolling. And there's a finality to it. Like, Raynor's gone with Kerrigan. Now, the one open question that I have is, oh wow, we're only into the voice actors now, huh? How did Kerrigan come from the Xel'Naga form to her human form? Yeah, I don't know. That's something that I'm confused about. But, oh well. Can't wait for StarCraft 3.